Welcome to Leadership Unfiltered. My name is Anton Gunn, and this is the place where we break down today's headlines and tell you what it means for you in your workplace. And today, we're talking about change management and leading an organization through change. The topic is focused on what's happening with the United States Agency for International Development, otherwise known as USAID. We all have been seeing the headlines where President Trump has empowered Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, to go into federal agencies to do their best to cut out fraud, waste, and abuse, or really to just shrink the size of government. Now, the reason why this is important for us to unpack in the context of organizational change is because every organization goes through some kind of change. It could be a downsizing. It could be a reorganization. It could be a merger. It could be all kinds of things. But in this context, Elon Musk is trying to change USAID forever, make the organization look different permanently. That could be closing down some long-standing programs, changing some things around, and eliminating it altogether. Now, USAID is not a brand new agency or organization. In reality, it was created in 1961 when President John F. Kennedy was president. The goals in 1961 was to create a United States agency that would provide international aid for humanitarian crises around the world. So whether it was a tsunami in the Far East or famine in Africa or some other kind of outbreak in some other country, our goal was for the United States to be ambassadors and diplomats in the world to provide aid to other nations. That's why it's called the United States Agency for International Development. The long-term goal was to help us to make sure that we support other nations around the world because it makes us look like a benevolent ambassador and partner with all of those nations to help them to grow and develop. And so for more than 50 plus years, USAID has operated in this way. It's actually more than 60 years it's operated in this way. And over those 60 years, the agency has grown. There have been new challenges and new threats and new different ideas on how we can do a better job of supporting development around the world. And most presidents have added on to USAID, but not necessarily taken away. Well, at the present time, we have a leader who has made the decision to take some things away and fundamentally change the organization forever. Now, how does this report or relate to you as a leader inside your organization? Well, let me break it down like this. You may have been leading for a very long time. Your company may have had a certain line of business for many, many years. But because of disruption, whether it be new leadership, whether it be a merger or an acquisition, or maybe it's generative AI coming in to change your entire business model, you and your employees may not be doing the same thing tomorrow that you're doing today. You may not be doing the same thing today that you were doing 10 years ago. And when you go through these types of changes, it's important for you to manage change. Because here's one thing I want you to understand. Change is inevitable, but growth or chaos is an option. It is up to you as a leader to decide whether you grow through change or does change become chaos. So now I want to unpack for you some things for you to think about as a leader, as you might be leading an organization through change, as you might be dealing with some massive disruption, maybe a new leader who said, we're going to go into a different direction. It doesn't matter what it is. I want you to be prepared in a raw, unfiltered kind of way to address the elephants in the room, to deal with the challenges in front of you, but most importantly, don't let change happen to you. You make change work for you. So let's get into it. Now, as I said, change is hard. All of us get comfortable, we get happy, we get lulled into submission of doing things the way we've always done them. And none of us really want change. We don't like change. But I'm telling you now that change is inevitable. Every industry goes through changes. If you're over the age of 40, you know a company called Kodak, who used to make these disposable cameras and other types of cameras that everybody had. Well, a disruption happened in the marketplace in the name of digital cameras and the name of smartphones. And now Kodak has gone through a transformation, if it even exists and we know it at all. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're going to face some change. If you don't believe me, go ask my friends over at BlackBerry. Because for a very long time, BlackBerry was a cell phone digital PDA provider, personal data assistant provider, who had the market cornered because they had the most secure, safe device that allowed people to communicate with instant messaging, email, and other types of communication. I was a loyal BlackBerry user. There was nothing you could do to take the BlackBerry away from me. I even called it my Crackberry because it always had to be in my hand. And most of us who use BlackBerries never could imagine a day in the United States of America where we would not have a BlackBerry in our hands, in our pocket, or on our hip. Well, that day came with the advent of the iPhone. The iPhone revolutionized personal data assistance and made it possible for you to do everything, run your entire business from an iPhone device, and do it in a sleek, cool way that BlackBerry couldn't keep up with. And so they went through massive change. They went through some downsizing. They went through some restructuring. They even tried to go through a rebranding process. These are all of the things that companies try to do to lead change or to manage change. Sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not. But when that change happens, let me talk to you very quickly about what your team and the employees in the organization are going through. Number one, most of them are afraid. Most of them are in rampant fear because nobody likes change. There's a high level of uncertainty and resistance to what is going down. And if you don't believe me, you can just go look right now to what is happening outside of USAID. You have protest marches, you have people hosting rallies, and everybody is going bananas about what is happening with the agency. Now, some of it, to be honest with you, is people's resistance to Donald Trump. I understand it wholeheartedly and completely. Other aspects of the resistance is people are resistant to Elon Musk. Why? Because he's not an elected official. He wasn't appointed and go through a Senate confirmation process like every other appointee is going through, but he's a unelected, unappointed special advisor who's been given carte blanche to go inside of government agencies and even get access to documents and information that most of us who have ever worked in government needed to go through a long vetting process to get a top secret security clearance. And somehow Elon Musk doesn't have to do that. So that is raising a level of fear and uncertainty, anxiety, resistance, and outright anger. And if you're a leader in an organization, it doesn't have to be Elon Musk or Donald Trump or you dealing with USAID. If you're going through any kind of change process, a rebranding, a refocus, new technology change, any kind of change, people are going to resist that and they're going to feel those emotions. So when they're feeling those emotions, it's up to you as a leader to help them to manage through the massive change. It's up to you. So the question is, how are you managing your team through massive change? Do you know what to do? And I've seen from the more 400 companies that I've worked with, half of them have no idea about what to do. The other half try to do it, but they do it wrong. And then some of them, a very small percentage, figure it out. But the ones who figure it out the best are the ones who spend the time listening to me and helping me to operationalize for them what change management should look like from a leadership standpoint. So I want to give you the things that you need to be doing right now if you're a leader leading a team who is either going through change or preparing to manage a massive change in your business. Number one, you need to be aware that the rumor mill is running rampant in your organization. Now, what do I mean rumor mill? You didn't start the rumors, but the fact that you're going through a change is giving everybody their own mindset around what does that actually mean. Because if you don't tell them what it means, they're going to interpret it themselves. And so with USAID, the freezing of all international humanitarian aid to countries all over the world, and the fact that Elon Musk is running around looking into computers and offices and everything else, has a lot of people afraid of the unknown. Some people think that we're slipping into anarchy. Other people think that we're slipping into a dictatorship. Some people think that their livelihoods and careers are gone forever because they might provide support to a country that a lot of people don't talk about. Other people are personally worried about their jobs. They're worried about their personal safety. They're worried about their well-being. Your employees in your company are worried about the exact same things. People are going to want to know, am I going to have a job? People want to know, is my paycheck going to stay the same or is it going to get cut? People want to know, I've been working in this division for 25 years. Is the division going away or is it staying? And if it stays, will I still get a chance to work in a division or will I still get a chance to lead in a division? These are all of the things that people are wondering. And without you giving them the answer, they're going to spread rumors on what they think, what they know, and what they don't know. Most people don't understand what's happening from a macro level, so it's up to you to give it to them at a micro level. So what am I saying to you? Your first responsibility as a leader is to minimize the fear of the unknown. Because people are always going to have fear. As a matter of fact, my favorite hip hop artist of the 90s and 2000 and even today is an artist named Nasir Jones. And he has a song called Hate Me Now. And one of the lines in the song says, people fear what they don't understand, hate what they can't conquer. I guess it's just a theory of man. So my context for you, people will always fear what they don't understand. They will hate the change process because they can't conquer the change process. So if you want to lead people successfully through it, then you got to minimize the fear of the unknown. You also have to show some empathy to those people who are going to be directly impacted by the change. That means you have to have some emotional intelligence about everything that is happening to you, your team, and the people in the organization. Be thoughtful that some people are losing their livelihoods. The direction change will be hard for them to buy into. They might even lose colleagues, especially if there are any downsizing or layoffs or people who didn't plan to retire suddenly retire. All of these things are happening at USAID as I'm speaking to you right now. So the same thing will happen in your organization, which means you as a leader need to have some empathy for what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. You need to be emotionally intelligent and don't say things like, quit taking it personal. A layoff is not personal. Well, everybody knows that a layoff is not personal. It's always about business. Somebody's business or somebody else's business. But it doesn't mean it doesn't feel personal and that it doesn't hurt people. And so you got to be okay with being a empathetic leader who's willing to understand that this is personally hurting people, even though it's just business. Now, the second thing or third thing that I would say you need to be focused on as a leader is understanding that all change is not bad change. All change is not bad change. And what do I mean by all change is not bad thing? I'm going to lay in to the USAID scenario. There's a lot of reasons that those programs were created, and many of them are incredibly valuable. Many of them are still meeting the mark. Others of them are doing things because it was the way we've always done things. And sometimes it's good to change things. And you might need a little bit of disruption to say, you know what? Why have we been doing the same thing the same way since 1961? Maybe we should think about this in a different way. But again, when people are resistant to change, nobody wants to give up what they're doing or to change what they've been doing. And it sometimes takes a disruptive force to move things in a different direction. And that might be the case. So if that is the case, you as a leader need to help people to understand that change can be good. That everybody is always going to be a naysayer against the change. They're always going to be a naysayer because people like the way things were. But the question is, can you help people to see the good in the change? That there's some value. Now, in order for people to do that, you can't destroy the mission, the vision, and the purpose of an organization. Because the purpose of an organization is what inspires people. It's what lifts people up. The mission is what lifts people up. People can be okay and buy into some change if they feel like you're still driving towards a purpose, a bigger positive vision of what the organization is supposed to do. But if you don't have people connected to the purpose and the vision, they're never going to believe that change is good. They're going to believe that it's all bad. So it's your job as a leader to try to help people to see the good in the change. And that means you have to lay it out. And how do you lay it out? You have to lay out a future vision of what greatness looks like after the change is over with. When I say greatness, you got to cultivate people to think about the future. You got to cultivate future thinkers for people to be able to see, once we're done with this difficult time period, what is the great things that we're going to do together as a team? If you're not articulating a future state of greatness of what the team will be doing after the change is made, then you're going to lose everybody in the process. That's really what's going to happen. So you as a leader really need to be invested in laying out a vision, a full vision post the change process. You can't give them half of the vision because, as I told you, people fear what they don't understand and they will make up stuff that doesn't exist because you didn't give them the transparency. I want you to understand that transparency breeds trust. Transparency in the change process breeds trust in the change process. And if people don't trust your process is going to fail. So it requires you to lay out a big vision, to lay out all of the details, even those things that you don't know yet. But say, we don't know this part, but we do know these 3 parts. You got to give people something to hold on to. So that is what you have to do to start the change process. Now, for you personally as a leader, this is not about your team, not about your organization, but this is about you as a leader. And what you need to do next is you need to elevate your effort to make things better. Now, when I say elevate your effort to make things better, I want you to know that you can't expect your team to work harder than you're working on the change process. People need to see you actively involved and actively committed to doing your part to make the change process successful. So you got to work harder and elevate your effort. Put in more hours, be the first one to come in and the last one to leave. People need to see you're invested in making sure that the change process goes smoothly and grows smoothly. So you got to focus on elevating your effort. And in order for you to elevate your effort, you have to strengthen your mindset and your skill set. So you need to understand the importance of developing yourself and growing yourself on what the future state is going to be. Developing your skills, developing your knowledge around the new business model, the knowledge around what the future state is going to look like. You got to focus there. And then if you identify any kind of old school problems, or when I say old school, problems that have started long before you got there, You need to find new ways to solve those problems. You got to become the innovator and the out-of-box thinker for your team, because many of them are going to be so overwhelmed with fear and anxiety and uncertainty and paralyzed. You can't rely on them to be the innovators, to be the innovative thinker. You got to keep them focused on the big picture future, but you got to become the person who focuses on being the innovator. So the last piece that I want to give you, as a leader who is led in large organizations and small organizations, help people to go through big changes that they were resistant to and get them on board, you need to understand that your people are everything in this process. And when I mean your people are everything in this process, don't take them for granted. That you need to learn how to serve them first. And serving them first requires you to understand that you have to build a support system around your people through the change process. And what I mean support system, coaching, counseling, town halls, all kinds of spaces to allow people to know that my leader supports me and is supporting us through this change process. You really have to create multiple environments. Think about it like a natural disaster. Okay, if a hurricane or floods or fires came through your city, the Red Cross and so many other organizations are going to set up shelters. They're going to set up counseling. They're going to set up temporary housing. They're going to put together care packages for people who need support through the traumatic event. That's what they do in crisis situations, because there's a drastic change. The weather changed everything. The storm changed everything. The mudslides changed everything. Even after a terrorist attack or a mass shooting, there's the same level of support. So in your organization, you got to do the same thing. You got to provide support to your people, particularly in the change process. So make sure you provide that support. You also need to make sure that you don't lose your top talent. Now, when I say lose your top talent, I want you to understand that your best people will also be resistant to change. And when they don't like change, they can either help you through the change or they can just quit altogether. And I'm telling you now, there's been multiple times where organizations lost out through a massive change and transition because your best people, the ones who are most knowledgeable about your business, your industry, the ins and outs of the organization, they weren't bought into the change because they weren't included into the change process from the beginning, that they made a decision to quit. That's how change will go bad for you and turn into chaos. You need your top talent. So you got to be the type of leader to recruit, re-engage, reward, and recognize your top talent in multiple ways so they stick with you through the change process. That means you got to celebrate them. If they provide information to help you to make a successful transition, celebrate them as being part of the team that helped us to make these changes. That's clear as a bell of what every leader needs to be doing. And if you don't know how to do that, that's the main reason why you need to stay plugged in to everything that I'm sharing and teaching, because I can show you how to retain your top talent by building a culture where no one ever wants to quit on you, even through massive change. Massive change management is what can help you if you do it right, but it can hurt you if you're doing it wrong. And I'm telling you now, you're doing it wrong if you don't celebrate, reward, recognize, and retain your top talent. You just won't. So I'm going to give it to you as I prepare to close. I'm going to give it to you in this way. USAID is going through a massive disruption. As a matter of fact, most of the federal government is going through a massive disruption. There are people who are quitting, who are being laid off, they're being lied to, they're being forced out. I mean, it's all kinds of things that are happening right now. And that change is going to be hard. I'm not certain that the change is going to be good. I'm not certain if the change is going to be as bad as some might make you think. But I am clear that the change is happening and you can either grow through it or it can become chaos. And for every leader in every industry who is leading through change, from priorities to business lines, to business interests, to stock price, to scandals, there's all kinds of things that can happen that can make your organization change. You need to be the leader who clearly understands that transparency in the change process breeds trust. You got to have a high level of emotional intelligence to support your people through what they're going through. Have some empathy for the loss that they're experiencing. And then you need to do whatever you can to keep them focused on a bigger picture, on a bigger vision, and staying connected to purpose. And at the same time, you got to get better as a leader. You got to be an innovator. You got to be a strategic thinker. You got to strengthen your mindset, your skill set, elevate your effort, and most importantly, you got to take care of your people. That's what needs to be done at USAID and what needs to be done at every business. Now, if you got any value out of this, I want you to like, share, and give me a comment on this video. What do you feel is the most valuable part of managing change for you and your team? I love to hear from you, love to stay connected with you, and I want to thank you for watching. See you next time on Leadership Unfiltered with Anton Gunn. Take care.